So now we're going to be going over listening skills. This is the most important trait to have as a salesperson. Having the ability to pay close attention to what other person's saying so you can understand their needs, problems, and goals. In sales call, cold calls, good listening means you are hearing to understand, not just waiting your turn to talk. If you're ever waiting your turn to talk, you're probably not going to make the sale, to be totally real with you. But it's kind of like if you can get someone to talk about themselves and you genuinely listen and remember and care what they're saying, genuinely care for somebody, they're going to inevitably like you, and that's going to make the sale 10 times easier. So, simplest way to say it is listening skills help you catch the important details, ask better follow-up questions, and respond in a way that makes sense for the client. Good listening usually means giving the person your full attention, not interrupting, noticing tone and hesitations, and repeating back key points so they know you understood them. When people feel heard, they trust you more, and that makes the conversation easier and more productive. It also helps you ask better questions, spot real pain points, and tailor your response to the client instead of giving a generic pitch. That usually leads to stronger relationships and better chances of closing the deal. For your training, the easiest way to say it is listening matters in sales because it helps you build trust, understand the client, and give a better answer. So, active listening basics pretty simple. Pay full attention, don't interrupt, and make sure you understand what the other person means. It's about hearing the words and also noticing tone, pauses, and emotions. The main basics are giving the speaker your undivided attention, showing you're listening with eye contact or short responses, asking clarifying questions when something is unclear, repeating or summarizing key points in your own words, and holding back judgment until the person finishes. So one of the biggest things here are follow-up questions. So ask follow-up questions. Build on what the other person is saying instead of just jumping to a topic. The goal is to show you're listening and get more useful detail, even if it's about like their dog, whatever that might be. A simple approach is to ask one open-ended prompts like, can you tell me more about that? What happened next? What do you mean by that? How did that affect you? Why do you think that happened? Stuff like that. A few good habits make them better. Ask one question at a time. Use the person's own words when possible. Stay curious rather than suspicious, and follow the thread of what they say instead of resetting the conversation. A quick example is to say, what did you like most about it? Instead of, did you like it? That usually gets a fuller, more useful answer. So, listen for like the top 3 things. The problem they're trying to solve, what outcome they want, and what happens if they wait. Pain points tell you what's broken, and goals tell you what they want instead. Urgency tells you what matters now. So, a simple way to do it is to ask what's not working, what success would look like, and what the cost of doing nothing is. And then listen for frustration, deadlines, budget pressure, missed targets, or repeated attempts that haven't worked. Good follow-up questions sound like, what's the main issue right now? What are you trying to achieve? How long has this been going on? What happens if it stays the same for another few months? Who's affected by it? The key is to keep them talking until the problem, the desired outcome, and the timeline are all clear. That gives you a much better read on whether or not there's a real need and how quickly they want to solve it. So, one thing I struggle with this personally is interrupting. Like, talk less by making your silent your default after you ask a question. When you feel the urge to jump in, wait a second. Pause for a beat. Let the other person finish. And only speak if you're adding something useful. A few simple habits help a lot. Ask one question at a time. Keep your responses short. And watch for signs that the other person wants space to talk. It also helps summarize what you heard instead of immediately giving your opinion. The good rule is to ask yourself whether what you're about to say is necessary, helpful, and kind. If it isn't, shut up. Let conversation breathe. So confirming understanding is another pretty important thing. You want to confirm what the other person is saying and that you understand it. So, simple line like, so if I understand what you're saying, blank works well. Or so it's simple stuff like that people love. You can ask more clarifying questions as well, like, did you mean X or Y? Could you explain that part a little more? Stuff like that. And a good habit is to end the quick check, like, does that sound right? Or am I on the right track? because that keeps the conversation clear and gives the other person an easy way to correct you. And let them correct you. Let them feel like they're running the conversation. Like they need to be talking way more than you are. So now I'll kind of get into why. So listening improves proposals because it helps you capture the buyer's real pain, the outcome they want, and the deadline they care about. That means the proposal feels specific instead of generic, which makes it easier for the buyer to say yes. It also improves closing because people are more likely to trust someone who understands them and asks relevant questions. Good listening can reduce unnecessary negotiation and speed up the deal by uncovering the real buying motive early. Simple way to put it is this: listen first, then shape the proposal and your responses about what they said. When the buyer feels understood, the close gets easier because you are solving their problem, not just presenting your product.